Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Facebook Live Lunch and Learn with the Center for African American Health. We are delighted to be kicking off the month of September by discussing the impact of Alzheimer's on our community. However, before we officially begin our Lunch and Learn, I want to take this opportunity to remind you that Election Day is quickly approaching. And if you need to register to vote, it's not too late. We can help you. The Center for African American Health will be hosting a drive-through voter registration event on September 25th from 9 a.m. to 1 in our parking lot at our building located at 3350 Hudson Street. So what I say to you is that's a whole nother reason to make sure you're washing your hands, staying safe, and wearing that mask. As we wait for a few more people to join us, I'd like to introduce myself and tell you a little bit more about the Center for African American Health. In my role at the center, I am the Senior Living Health and Wellness Coordinator. And essentially what that means is anyone who is 50 plus, if you have some concerns, need some resources, I'm the person that you reach out to. We've begun some new classes, our Aging Mastery program that's all about living your best life. And as Jill Scott would say, living it like it's golden. We also have our year-long program that is entitled Journey to Wellness, which looks at some of the lifestyle changes we may need to make and want some support from the group. We again have our diabetes self-management education. So for those of you who have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, this will be your 8-week session. The best thing about it all, every one of those classes is free. We've created a Zoom format. Reach out to Yolanda at CAA Health.org and I will sign you up. Don't ever say we don't want our community to be informed. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with the work of the Center for African American Health, we've been in the community for more than 20 years with a focus and a commitment to improving the health and well-being of the African American community. We are community-based, utilize evidence-based and disease prevention and disease management programs and services. You can definitely learn more about our work and our programs by visiting our website at caahealth.org. As we move through today's session, please feel free to type your questions in the comment area and we will address them if time permits. September is recognized as World Alzheimer's Month. This campaign was launched on a global level to raise awareness of the disease and to reduce the stigma and common misconceptions associated with the illness. Our goal during today's Lunch and Learn is to provide information that will help individuals and families understand the causes and the risk factors for the disease, as well as some of the early symptoms that may be present. And from a personal standpoint, I can say having this information would have been so beneficial to my family because of my father's diagnosis with Alzheimer's. So we were just learning on the fly and trying to make it work, which is definitely not evidence-based. So I am so happy to say that joining me today is Rosalyn Reese, who is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the Alzheimer's Association's Colorado chapter. Welcome, Rosalyn, and if you would be so kind as to tell us something about you.
Thank you for having me, Yolanda. Well, I am a native of Colorado and certainly have grown up in Colorado, and as well, I worked in telecommunications for over 18 years until I recognized the need as an only child that I too was a caregiver for my mother, who was diagnosed with breast cancer. And also at that time, I worked for the Center for African American Health. So I love what you all continue to do, and shout out to Deidre. And certainly my time at the center was definitely cherished, in which I worked as the Faith and Health Ministry Coordinator from 2006 to 2010. And then later joined the Alzheimer's Association because of a personal connection, as well as the need to reduce the risk of dementia in the African American community. So as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion, I oversee all of the health equity efforts in our volunteer management as well as community engagement. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And it's great to know that I am following in big footsteps. And so with that, I have often heard people use the terms dementia and Alzheimer's interchangeably. Can you clarify by explaining the difference, if there is a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Get that question all of the time. And dementia is an umbrella term. So if you think about cancer being an umbrella term, dementia is not a disease. However, it's a term that describes a decline in memory, thinking, and behavior. Or I also like to say memory, thinking, and a person's inability to reason. And Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. So that represents about 60 to 80% of all other dementias. Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that literally destroys brain cells. So it's fatal. There is no cure, and it cannot be prevented.
Okay, thank you for that distinction. Our research is showing that Latinos and African Americans are at a higher risk for developing Alzheimer's. The belief is that higher rates of vascular disease amongst these ethnic groups may be the contributing factor. What are some examples of vascular disease that people may be familiar with?
Absolutely. You know, that too, vascular disease is close to home for me because my grandfather had vascular dementia. And African Americans, as we know, are disproportionately impacted by heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. And we know that age is the primary risk factor for increasing diagnosis to Alzheimer's. But the other dementias, like vascular disease or vascular dementia, which is the second most common form, that literally is a situation where blood vessels are damaged in the brain, and that could result in a decline in memory and other symptoms that may exist as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's common for us to lose our sharpness with old age, but sometimes it can be symptomatic of a larger health issue. Is that correct?
That's definitely correct, Yolanda. You know, age, we can't take a pill and get away from not aging, right? So yes, 1 in 3 seniors will pass away with some form of dementia, and typically 85 and older. And statistics also indicate 1 in 10 persons over 65 will likely have a diagnosis. So increasing age is a factor. However, chronic conditions, again, like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, and actually in the latest research, we just convened over 31,000 people virtually at our International Alzheimer's conference.
Mhm.
AAIC is what it's known as. It's the annual conference, and I had an opportunity to attend virtually. And in that, world-renowned researchers, scientists came together, and there was even some information that talked about BMI. That a high BMI, body mass indicator, early in life could potentially lead to a later life diagnosis of dementia. So there's so many different risk factors and so many indicators, and we know that lifestyle plays a part as well.
Okay. I've often heard that there are some specific gender differences in that men stop talking, women don't stop talking, that men tend to withdraw faster than women. And I'm just wondering, is there any truth to that? Are those just thoughts and experiences from others who have watched family members go through this?
Well, it's true that women are more likely to receive a diagnosis because, in fact, we're living longer. In terms of, and excuse me, my eyes tend to water here with Zoom, but in terms of the difference that you just spoke about, I'm not familiar with that in part, the fact that everyone's different and might exhibit different symptoms. Certainly, I've heard a myriad of different symptoms that would go along with a dementia diagnosis. So thank you for sharing that. Definitely.
Okay. Now, I don't know that it's true. I've just heard it.
Okay.
So the other thing that I've also witnessed and heard from others who have family members that have gone through this are personality changes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a real thing, or is that just agitation on the part of the person who is going through the Alzheimer's?
Personality change is a real thing. Again, there are 10 warning signs, if you will, evidence-informed signs that were created many years ago to help inform if there is a potential diagnosis. However, we don't encourage folks to go through the 10 warning signs and say, yes, they in fact have Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. However, one of the signs would be, change in personality, or there is in fact a dementia that's known as frontal temporal dementia. The name has somewhat changed over the years, but in short, we call it FTD. And that impacts the part of the brain that does define one's personality. And to be honest with you, Yolanda, my grandfather, who had vascular dementia, I think he also had FTD. And I say that in part because of his behavior, his inability to communicate like he used to. And he definitely lost all of his social graces, meaning he was combative and he cursed a lot. And those are some indicators that there may be a personality change as a result of a form of dementia.
Okay. Why is it so important to get diagnosed early?
Early diagnosis matters, and it matters because we are able to once if a person has a diagnosis, they're able to then take part in their own financial and legal planning. We encourage families, as families come to us, caregivers come to us because their loved one may have been diagnosed early. We have a a specific early stage program that helps family to navigate a diagnosis. So in part, it allows one the opportunity to participate in their own planning. So I know that's essentially important, and definitely we encourage that. If there are any concerns with the 10 warning signs of short-term memory loss, saying the same thing over and over, having challenges in problem solving, maybe a change in grooming, not paying attention to your hygiene, all of those are reason to be concerned and to contact the doctor. And you want to do it sooner than later to be able to receive the support that one needs.
Okay, so we have one question from our audience, and that is, do you have any advice for people serving as caregivers to a parent or a relative with Alzheimer's disease?
Mm-hmm.
For example, how do you adjust to expectations and lifestyle changes in that role while managing their stress, meaning the caregiver's stress and or burden?
Such an excellent question. And we at the Alzheimer's Association, we encourage caregivers to put their mask on first, right? We're getting on a plane, that's the first thing they're going to tell us. So in that, it's important, it's imperative that a caregiver assess the situation, assess what it is that may trigger the behavior, and to seek support. We encourage caregivers to contact us. We have a variety of online, and again, in COVID, we had to pivot, and everything that we're doing is virtual. But we have a variety of online education classes as well as support classes. So I would encourage the caregiver to first contact us, and our 24/7 helpline is 800-272-3900, or to access our website at alz.org/CO. We have some information on that on our website, how to manage caregiver stress, how to reduce the concerns around not getting the care that the caregiver needs to be able to help their loved one. And it's true that a caregiver's stress is increased threefold because of the enormous pressure that they're under in providing great care. I want to shout out to our caregivers, to all of the caregivers out there, because they are certainly essential workers. In my mind, I was a caregiver when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had to fill that role, and being the only child, I know how stressful it is.
Okay, well, thank you. And you mentioned COVID. And so I am wondering, what has been the impact, if any, on those who have been diagnosed or those who are in the early stages of their diagnosis, and the impact of COVID-19?
Well, we found that COVID has exposed a great deal of health inequities, right? So not that COVID leads to dementia. However, in the international conference that we just convened, coming out of that is the fact that there will be a study to study the brain, in particular around the impact of coronavirus on the brain, because again, it is such a horrible disease and the pandemic that we're all dealing with. We know that a compromised immune system could be, a situation where someone may be diagnosed with COVID. So we provided tips online. We also shifted and created a COVID 19 Health Center. And, again, I encourage people to either contact us or to check out our website to learn more about that. We also, Yolanda, have a new presentation that we're doing virtually, if anyone's interested, called COVID and Caregiving.
Oh, thank you.
And there we're talking about the tips of how to, prevent and even encourage the mask wearing and all of that.
Okay. One other thing that a friend of mine had told me, she says, think of the brain before Alzheimer's as like a full block of cheese. And then to think of it with Alzheimer's as Swiss cheese.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering, is that really true what happens with our brain cells, that they're leaving these little pockets of where there had been information? Now there's holes in that information?
Unfortunately, Yolanda, that is the case. I would say that an analogy that you just shared is a great visual to see, unfortunately, the decline that is happening in one's brain. There's a fact that it starts in the hippocampus, which is the short-term memory bank where precious memories are stored. And there's a diagnosis of abnormal plaques and tangles that build up in the brain. And so when it destroys the hippocampus, it later stages throughout the brain. And yes, unfortunately, the brain shrinks over time. And then the healthy area of the brain is destroyed. So as much as we don't want to think about that, that is the reality of Alzheimer's disease. It stages. We often refer to it in the 3 stages of early stage, middle stage, and late stage. And that's why it's imperative that someone be diagnosed early to be able to still navigate the quality of life that they're able to do, even with the diagnosis, until hopefully one day there is a cure.
All right, well, thank you for that. So we know that fear of the unknown often prevents people from taking charge of their health and seeking medical attention. Can you walk us through what the next steps are after a diagnosis of Alzheimer's and what we can do as a community about Alzheimer's and dementia?
Yeah, you're right about that. The emotions run high when there's a diagnosis. My family firsthand has experienced that, and I know how challenging it is. And first and foremost, it's imperative that families seek support and not feel like they have to navigate this journey alone. There's a number of supportive referrals, if you will, that we are able to offer as an association. So again, we want families to contact us if they get that diagnosis at 1-800-272-3900. We want also families to know that getting the support they need is going to allow them to continue to care for their loved ones effectively. The doctor may also refer a family to other resources. But again, we are seeking various community partners to be able to help expand and reach more people, because we know over 5 million people are living with this disease. And in Colorado, the numbers increased, unfortunately, to about 76,000 people. And then you have over 250,000 caregivers. And, the important thing is it does take a village. So we're here for it.
Okay. And as we're about to move into our wrapping up,
Mhm.
Why do you think African Americans are disproportionately impacted by Alzheimer's and dementia?
Yes, African Americans definitely are twice and maybe in some cases 2 times more likely. And, you know, the center has done phenomenal work over the years, and as far as knowing why those disparities are so high, it's multifaceted, right? So systemic inequities, access, no access to health care, um, social economic issues, the social determinants of health we know actually aggravate or you know continue to plague why the disparities are so high.
Mhm.
However, we also know that high blood pressure, other chronic conditions, diabetes, heart disease, those are unfortunately conditions that we lead, not proudly, but we lead those conditions, right? So the reality is, once we know better, we can do better. And so, and when I say that, I say it from the standpoint that we have to be our own advocate for our health because of the systemic inequities. And we're just doing our best as an organization to be able to achieve health equity by education, by offering care and support, and being a resource to the community.
Okay, well, thank you. So we're almost out of time. And I just want to say that we want to make sure that you all have the link to the Alzheimer's Association's website, and that is alz.org/CO. And we've also provided this in the comments. If you have any other questions, please reach out to Rosalyn, because I know she's a storehouse of information, and we only just barely touched the surface. We also want to share information about the Walk to End Alzheimer's event on September 19th. Now, you know it's COVID, so it's going to look differently this year, and there won't be a large in-person gathering, but there are other ways to participate. And how can people get involved in 30 seconds or less?
Okay, well, absolutely. I have a team. They can go to alz.org/walk and search for my name, Rosalyn Reese, or the team name is Kick It, Kick It. And my prior predecessor, Susu Gray, who some may know, who Susu lives in Costa Rica now, she named that team. And for the 10 years I've been with the association, we continue to try to kick it. So join the team, give us a call, and we would love to have you walk everywhere within your neighborhood. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And so we're out of time. We want to thank you again for joining us, Rosalyn. And I just want everyone to know that as you're out there preparing to kick it, this video will be available along with other information on the Center for African American Health's website, which is CAAHealth.org. The center will also continue to be a strong advocate and to raise awareness of Alzheimer's disease throughout the month via our social media and our e-news blast. So also look for those. And if you haven't done so already, please join our mailing list by visiting our website, and that way you will be on the cutting edge of whatever information that we have to share. And I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. We hope to see you next week. Enjoy this long weekend. And remember, we don't have to have large gatherings, but we do need to wash our hands. We need to stay safe. We need to wear that mask because we got to get through to November 3rd. So we've got to wear those masks. So don't forget our registration, voter registration event as well. Thank you ever so much, And thank you for spending this moment of your day with the Center for African Americans Lunch and Learn series.
Thank you.